Sneha, let me introduce you to other folks. So guys, everyone here, Sneha is a director of quality engineering at Everfi, and she is today speaking on the topic of testing in the e-learning world. Okay. If you want to see her video, please check on the link has been already shared, and we'll paste that in the group chat as well. By the way, do not forget everyone to share their valuable feedback after the session gets over, as well as for the completed sessions too. Thanks. Thanks, Sneha. So all yours now.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I am Sneha Viswalingam. I'm sorry about not putting the video on. I'm in Chennai right now, and my connection is not very stable. So I want to get through this seamlessly. So I'm going to have my video off. So I'm Sneha. I actually live in Pittsburgh on the East Coast of the US. Right now, I'm in Chennai visiting my parents. And I started my career as a test automation engineer, and I've designed and architected test frameworks, and I've worked as a software operations engineer, where I worked with tools to improve developer productivity. And right now at Everfi, in my current role as Director of Quality Engineering, I lead the course side of things, where we test all the courses provided by Everfi by creating test automation, and we also create our own internal tools in QA to make the process more efficient. Other than that, I'm a very passionate person with a lot of hobbies and interests, and I'm all about living a purposeful and a well-balanced life. And I also host a podcast called Coder Stories, and I interview awesome people in tech about their passion and interest, and about having a growth mindset, about leveling up in their careers and topics like that. So check it out. And reach out to me on LinkedIn, or I don't have Twitter anymore, so I have to update that. But I am very active on Instagram, where I share my professional journey, and my Instagram handle is also Coder Stories. So yeah, I'm excited for this talk today. So I also want to introduce what we do at Everfi. Everfi is a company that I work for. So at Everfi, we kind of take on the missing layer of education. Currently, our education system is a combination of subjects like reading and math and science. But when do we teach our students about the building blocks of personal, economic, and financial security, mental health, wellness, sustainable lifestyles, about environmental protection, etc.? So we've not given them the tools to build wealth and economic opportunities for themselves and their families. And how are they being prepared for the jobs and skills of the future, like data science and understanding cryptocurrency? So at Everfi, we have a structured roadmap for all of that for students to ensure long-term success and to drive the ecosystem of change starting from the school itself. So that's what we do at Everfi. So we are an e-learning company. So that is why in today's talk, we're going to talk about testing in the e-learning side of things, because in general, the key objective of testing a software application is to ensure that it functions seamlessly, efficiently, and it can be used as intended. But on the other hand, the most critical objective of testing an e-learning program is to make sure that it is learnable. This means that the e-learning course must ensure that the audience gets the required learning out of it. So that when testing an e-learning platform, some considerations have to be taken into account. Like, for example, e-learning courses contain a lot more multimedia resources like images, audio, video assessments, interactive components and things like that we need to account the learnability of the course, which will all be tested in the form of usability, functionality, accessibility, and performance. So in today's talk, some of the key takeaways out of this talk will be the following points. Like everything else, we have to start at the base to drive positive change early on. And so I'll talk to you about the testing problem that we had and how we solved that problem. And then we'll talk about how do we build for the future with model-based testing, because that is a solution we selected and we worked on. So how we model the system to increase our quality coverage. And then the technology is driving the transformation. You can learn how we are auto-generating Cypress test code and having Apator's visual assertions from Curiosity software model-based testing tool solution. And lastly, I'm going to talk to you about how it's such a journey. We're always thinking about how to overcome more efficient, faster, and not be the bottleneck in the system. So to start with our quality evolution process, so the first stage where we started, we were just doing manual testing, and we had a third-party company for exploratory testing. It would take us like a long time to test our courses and to actually release it in production, right? So then we had to start with automation. So that's when stage one, from months for production release, we went to weeks by utilizing test generation algorithms. We created the entire system from a collection of models. We selected model-based testing to generate Cypress tests for UI functional tests and Applitools for visual tests. And then the next stage was the innovation side of thing, where we created our own test generator CLI to automate that process best. And then the stage after that is when we actually created another tool of ours for us to be able to generate the testing code. So you can see that throughout this evolution, we have reduced the time to production from months to weeks to hours and seconds. And so this is what I'm going to talk about in the talk coming forward. So next, I want to talk about why model-based testing. Why did we choose model-based testing out of the so many different options that we have out there? We had a set of pain points. So for example, traditional testing methods, especially for a solution like ours for an e-learning course, not all sections of the page was tested, not all permutations and combination of the courses were tested, and we need to make tests reusable, which was not very easy in traditional testing methods, and a lot of copy and pasting, and front-end testing is very fragile, and ambiguous test cases. These were some of the pain points that we wanted to solve. And the solution for that seemed very apt for us was model-based testing. So if you're not familiar with model-based testing is when a model is a description of a system or behavior. We give the input sequence, actions, conditions, etc. That is called the model. And the model is generally reusable. You only have to define it once, and then you can use it everywhere else. And when you define a model, the quality coverage of the system is documented very well. And then you can create test scripts automatically generated once the models are ready. Now, further in this talk, I'm going to explain this with examples so you're able to understand this better. Next, let's go into what are the technologies driving the change and why model-based testing was the best choice for our company. So in other forms of testing, we generally have a test script. We'll write we'll have, for example, in Cypress, we have a describe it block, and then we have a series of fixed commands and assertions that make up the scenarios. And usually we use page object model, typically, which kind of leads to duplication, and there's a lot of copy and pasting. Whereas in model-based testing, the software behavior of the model is just defined once. So in an e-learning system, we have different components and blocks. So what we do is we just have to model the components and blocks once, and the behavior of that is specified. And then we have low maintenance, and we have one-on-one relationship between a model and a web component. And it's easier to develop and maintain, high coverage, everything inside the model is validated, documented. And then it requires a shift in mindset and culture as well, because we're used to doing traditional test automation and more upfront effort, because we have to make sure that we model each and every component, and it maximizes coverage with the least number of tests, and manual calculation is less efficient and less accurate than the model-based testing permutations and combinations that the tools create for us. So technology is driving all the learning transformation. So we're using a tool called Test Modeler. which is a model-based testing tool from a company called Curiosity Software. So what that does is model generation, functions, reusable objects, user flow, test generation, code template. I will show you in detail how Test Modeler works very soon in the upcoming slides. And then we use Cypress for test generation. And then we use AptTools for visual testing. And we have Circle CI, which is our continuous testing tool. The next, let's talk about component test generation. So we built a tool called Modelo, and I will, of course, show you more about what Modelo does. It's a tool that we created internally within the company that will auto-generate tests by using the Test Modeler APIs. Test Modeler, again, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is the tool, the model-based testing tool that we're using from a company called Curiosity Software. And we built Modelo using the APIs from Test Modeler for auto generation. And then we have the course components from our e-learning course, which I have all sorts of different web components, carousel, accordion, button, for example. And then what happens is Test Modeler, like along with Modelo, creates tests using the test engine like Cypress over here, for example. We use Cypress, but using these tools, you have many different options like Selenium and Playwright, whatever test engine you want to use. But for us, we used Cypress. And then what happens is that it automatically generates the Cypress tests for you. So what we did is we went ahead with, since it's an e-learning software, right? We want to make sure that our tests are very like usable and accessibility friendly. So we have mouse interaction testing, we have keyboard interaction testing, we have accessibility testing, we have visual testing, and we also have UI testing. And all of this we are able to cover using the different templates that we use. And then we use Circle CI for integration, and then AptTools for visual testing. So this is what kind of the flow looks like. And for course test generation, to look in further, we have, for example, all these web components. We have like 80 plus web components that we use for our courses. And then Test Modeler takes them in. And the best part of model-based testing is that it creates the different permutations and combinations that is required in different pages. So we don't have to worry about any of that. So all the edge cases and everything will be covered with model-based testing. That's the beauty of model-based testing. So let's take a closer look at how the code looks like once it's generated. Now, this is an example of the code for a carousel. Towards the right, you can see what a carousel looks like, for example. And then when we generate the tests using our tool, this is the Cypress code that we get out of it. And this is an example for a button. So this is what a Cypress dashboard looks like, just in case anyone's not used to Cypress. So when we have a Cypress dashboard, this is what it looks like. There's different options like analytics and latest runs, and you can actually even go in and see your screenshots and videos of the test failures, and you can see so many different stats, failed runs, passed runs, and the run duration, average run duration. It's very easy to collect metrics for your end of the quarter reviews and things like that. And you can see all the top failures, and so this is what it kind of looks like. It goes in details and give you all the stats, and you can do a lot of filtering over here, for example. So this is over here, when you go and see it, it has a screenshot of where it failed and all the different failures. And it also provides the video of where it failed and how it failed and at what point it failed. So that's the Cypress dashboard. The next, I want to introduce you to the AptTools dashboard, and AptTools is the visual testing software that we're using. So here you can see with AptTools, it actually takes screenshots of the course, and it compares it with its model screenshot. And even if there is a pixel change, it will highlight it, and then we will have to go in and give a thumbs up or thumbs down saying if it's expected or not, and provide a new baseline if it is expected, just based on that. So that is the Aptitudes dashboard, which we use for visual testing. Now let's take a closer view at Test Modeler. So I'm going to show you how we, like the first stage, we manually generated courses with Test Modeler. So in this section, I'm going to just show you how to use a Test Modeler to create a simple model and generate the test. So first here, we are creating a new model. And the Test Modeler is a test case design tool, and each path represents a test case. So we have many actions like start and end and waypoint and task and things like that. And the model must always have a start point and an end point, and all actions are kind of connected to another action by arrows and edges. That's how you connect them. So together, these actions from paths between the start and the end point, tasks can have multiple edges, and that denotes the different routes through the system logic. And then, we can generate tests and all that. So using this, we can actually drag and drop all the different models that we've made for the different components. So based on how a course looks, we can drag and drop the test for the entire course. So this is just a small example, but imagine actually just dragging it up for the flow of the whole course. So now when I generate a test, the Cypress test for this will be generated over here. And then when you run it, you can actually download the Cypress code and just use it however we want. And here's where we will also integrate aptitudes testing and Axe score testing for accessibility. So this is what the Cypress test script looks like when you generate it. Next, so previously what I showed you was how we manually generated tests using the test modeler. But as I mentioned previously, we start from scratch and then we go into stages. So the next stage, when we started thinking, how can we make this even better, right? Like Everfi has hundreds of courses, and with new modules of courses being built, almost every sprint, there's changes being made into the courses that will lead to course map changes that will require course automation maintenance. And another pain point was understanding all the reusable models and figuring out where they are located inside Test Modeler. So the question we always had in our mind was, how can we make this process better? And that was the introduction of our in-house tool called Modelo. So Modelo is the tool that auto-generates the course models from the course schema map. So all that manual step I showed you, going into Test Modeler and dragging and dropping things, now we created a tool which will do it for us, and we don't even have to log into Test Modeler to do that, right? So, so before I demonstrate how Modelo looks like, I'm going to show you how Everfi scales course development. So we have an in-house content management system, which was built by our developers. So engineering team built this in-house. It's an Electron app to help scale the growth of building courses. So using the Forge app, the team can build a course by just dragging and dropping elements of the page. So one can manage the modules, pages, activities, groups, menus. So this is how we build courses at Everfi. So what happens is, with a tool like this, we don't need somebody with big development skill sets to be able to build the tool. So we just have a development team that builds the tool, and light skills are enough to be able to put together a course once by using this tool. So now that we know, what that looks like, so a course is generated from the Forge tool, and then so I'm going to talk to you about the process of how that kind of looks like, right? The end-to-end process. So, so the Forge app is the course builder, and then we have the Everfi course that is generated out of the Forge app, and then we have Modelo, the tool we built that will go and read all the data from the course schema file and generate tests with the test engine, which is Cypress for us. So it creates Cypress UI tests, and then it runs in Circle CI continuous integration, and then it creates visual tests. So now I want to talk about how Modelo works. So let's start with, as I mentioned before, like the Everfi course has some JSON files with a course structure. So Modelo takes a compiled JSON file from a course and it generates a model based on the structure of the JSON file. So the logic is that Modelo reads the JSON file, parses it, transforms it into some useful data structures, and then it takes each page in the course and it recurses through the course structure, building up a map of pages. And then there is a sequential map of pages and their associated blocks. So these pages can then be iterated to create a model, which is filled with subflows that model the block for each page. Like, for example, if a page contains a carousel, then the code will find the carousel block in test modeler and drop that in the model for that page. I'm going to show you a demo that explains this entire process. Now, I need somebody to tell me if you can hear the audio from the demo. Can you hear the audio from the demo?
No.
No? Okay, great. Okay, so I will talk through the video then, okay? So over here, I've cloned the course called Grow, Savings and Retirement. So if you see here, we have some JSON files which have information about all the components and blocks in this course. Excuse me. This will help us generate a skeleton of what the course is actually supposed to look like in a test modeler model. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, so next we will create a new model in the test modeler. And here we will be adding a globally unique tag so that, you know, we can use a tag instead of the model ID and the profile ID. That's what that looks like. And then I'm going to be doing an npm install for installing the Modelo. So Modelo is a CLI tool that is built using native ESM modules, which is fairly recent addition to Node.js. And then I'm going to initiate it. I'm going to do a Modelo init command. So I'm going to show you what a course looks like. So this is a course, Everfi course that we are testing in this demo. This course is called Grow, Savings and Retirement. This is a test link. We have about 4 modules in this course that you can see here. The course is structured in a way that it is made up of modules and assignments and pages and a bunch of different components in each page. And we used to build automation by dragging and dropping combinations for each page of this module. Using model-based testing was a good idea, and we could reuse the components and drag and drop to build the combinations needed. But we wanted to go one step further and automate this process itself so that we can do this faster. So what we did was we use a Modelo model command, which generates a model for a given course. And I'm going to be adding the description and the unique tag that we used while creating the model in test modeler. So that is a process. And after that, I'm just going to use the generate config file. I'm going to specify the URL. And then if you see, the model is actually created. The model is actually created by using these commands. I did not have to go in and drag and drop anything. I didn't have to even go into test modeler and do any kind of things. Everything was just using commands, using Modelo. So after this, I'm just going to be using Modelo generate command, which will generate the entire Cypress test suite. including downloading tests from test model and saves it here in the project folder. And then this is a Cypress test that is generated for us. And then I can just do a Cypress run and the tests will run here. Here you see the test started executing. So that was the demo for Modelo. As you can see, we just use Modelo model command to model the system. So what that does is just goes to the course JSON files and reads the course schema and pulls all the different models together and puts it together. And then we do Modelo generate command that does the generation step of generating the Cypress test based on the model that we put together. And then we just like run the tests. So that was how we went to the next stage. So the first stage was manual testing. Second stage was using model-based testing, drag and drop. And the third stage was just automating the generation side of things. And the fourth stage was actually automating even the modeling side of things. So after doing this, the increased productivity for the team with Modelo. So some data points along our journey. Our speed of modeling the system increased with the use of Modelo. Has gone from about 3 hours of modeling a module to about 3 minutes because everything is automated and modeled for us on its own. And then the number of courses we were able to model have about 80% of our courses that were built using Forge are automated now. We have quality coverage, increase the number of courses that we have been able to cover for automation so far in a very quick time. And then accelerated transformation, we were using vendors for crowd exploratory testing. Now we are on track to completely use automation for at least 90% of the testing needs. And we are able to shift left because the team that builds the courses using the Forge tool will now be able to use Modelo to generate automation and test it right there as soon as they build it. So imagine how much left we are shifting over here. Boosted productivity, because the course map changes. If there is any additional change to the page, we have to go back and drag and drop things to, remake the test. But right now we don't even have to do any of that. We just have to run the Modelo generate command and the Modelo model command, and it does it for us on its own. And collaboration, this tool really helps with collaboration and brings in like the quality mindset, and that quality is everyone's responsibility. And we're all one big team because we work with the developers and the QA team together. And then quality of delivery with increased coverage of automation, because you know that there's going to be drag and drop and things like that. With increased coverage, we are able to support a faster delivery cycle and cost savings.